Welcome to Nightmare Narratives, the channel where your darkest fears come to life. Tonight's story is not for the faint of heart. It's about a man who stayed in a hotel room and barely made it through the night. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and remember, some places should never be entered. It was close to midnight when I arrived in a small, forgotten town. The streets were empty, lifeless, like the place had been abandoned years ago. Broken streetlights flickered weakly, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. The cold wind carried scraps of paper across the pavement, and every sound echoed unnaturally loud, as if the night itself was listening. I searched desperately for somewhere to stay. My phone battery was dead, my car nearly out of gas. That's when I noticed it, a single neon sign buzzing faintly at the end of the street. The letters glowed unevenly. Hotel. The light sputtered and blinked as though trying to warn me away. Something inside me whispered that I shouldn't go in. But I had no choice. I needed shelter. Air was heavy and stale, as if the building hadn't been opened in years. The wallpaper peeled in long strips, and the smell of damp wood mixed with something sour, almost metallic. Behind the reception desk sat an elderly woman. Her skin was pale, her hair gray and brittle, her movements slow, deliberate. She didn't greet me, she simply stared, her eyes strangely glassy as though she was seeing something beyond me. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Room 6. She slid an old brass key across the counter. Her hand trembled slightly as she let go. I hesitated, waiting for her to say more. She opened her mouth as if to warn me, but then she pressed her lips tightly together. Something in her expression told me everything I needed to know. She didn't want me in that room, but I was too exhausted to care. The hallway stretched out before me, dimly lit by weak bulbs that buzzed and flickered overhead. The carpet was worn thin, stained with dark marks that looked disturbingly organic. My footsteps echoed too loudly, as though the hallway was amplifying the sound. The air grew colder with every step. I passed closed doors, each with brass numbers dulled by age. But when I reached room 6, I stopped. The number plate had deep scratches across it, as if someone had tried to tear it off the door with their bare hands. My skin prickled. I turned the key in the lock. The door groaned open, its hinges shrieking like a wounded animal. The smell inside was sharp, mold, dust, and something faintly rotten. The room was simple, a bed with yellowed sheets, a wooden wardrobe that leaned slightly to one side, and a small lamp struggling to stay lit. But what immediately drew my attention was the mirror. It stood directly across from the bed. Tall, wide, framed in dark wood. The kind of mirror that seemed too old to belong in a hotel. Its surface shimmered faintly in the low light, reflecting the room in unsettling detail. For reasons I couldn't explain, I hated it instantly. The longer I looked at it, the more I felt watched. As if something inside the glass was staring back at me, I forced myself to look away. I set my bag down, switched off the lamp, and tried to sleep. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror was waiting for me. At 2:13 a.m., I woke with a start. My throat was dry, the air icy. I could see my breath. I lay still, listening. Then I heard them. Voices, at first faint, just whispers like the rustling of leaves, but the longer I listened, the clearer they became. A man's voice, low, angry, a woman's voice, higher, frantic. They were speaking quickly, overlapping each other. I sat up, heart pounding. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway, not from outside. It was coming from the corner of the room, from the mirror. I stared at it in the dark, my skin crawling. The whispers grew louder, and then, faintly, I saw movement inside the glass. A shadow. Someone standing behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror, pale, shaken. But something was wrong. As I raised my hand to my face, my reflection stayed still. For one horrifying second, and it didn't move. And then, it smiled. A wide, unnatural grin stretched across its face. My face, but not mine. I stumbled back, knocking the lamp to the floor. The bulb shattered, plunging the room into darkness. The voices stopped. The silence pressed against my ears until I thought I'd go mad. I turned the mirror to face the wall, my hands trembling. But deep inside, I knew that wouldn't be enough. That's when the footsteps began. Slow, deliberate, heavy, each one closer than the last. They stopped right outside my door. The handle rattled softly. Then came the scratching, long, slow drags across the wood. I shoved a chair under the knob and pressed myself against the wall. My breathing was shallow, ragged. Minutes passed. Silence. And then, the chair slid on its own. It scraped across the floor, moving slowly back under the desk, as if unseen hands were dragging it away. I froze. My pulse thundered in my ears. Then the sound of wood scraping. The mirror I had turned to the wall was moving. It shifted back into place, facing me, reflecting me. But I wasn't alone anymore. Behind me stood a figure, tall, faceless, its body a void, darker than shadow, and its hand rested on my shoulder. Cold spread through me, freezing me in place. I tried to scream, but no sound came. My reflection grinned wider. The faceless figure leaned closer. That was enough. I bolted out of the room. Down the hallway, my footsteps slamming against the floor. Down the stairs, two at a time. My chest burned, my lungs screaming for air. The night outside hit me like ice, but I didn't stop. Not until I stumbled to the reception desk. The old woman sat there, motionless, as if she had been waiting. I slammed the key down and shouted, "What is wrong with that room?" She looked at me calmly, almost too calmly, and whispered, "You lasted longer than most. He usually doesn't let them stay that long." My voice cracked. "Who?" Her lips curled into something between a smile and a grimace. "The man in the mirror. The one who hanged himself 30 years ago." In room 6, she pushed a small envelope toward me and whispered again, "You should leave. Before he follows you." I didn't argue. I ran into the night, never looking back. And to this day, I never book a room with a mirror facing the bed. What would you have done in that room? Let me know in the comments if you're brave enough. And remember, subscribe to Nightmare Narratives for more terrifying stories, because the next nightmare might be yours.